Good day and a huge welcome to Steve's Kitchen. Today we're going to see if the Instant Vortex Plus can be used as a proofer for bread. Really, the name of this thing drives me nuts. Instant Vortex Plus, dreadful name, great air fryer. But we're going to see if this can proof bread, because if it can, it's a bit of a game changer. And this one has a dehydration, so we can turn the temperature right down. This episode's going to be a little bit wordy because I'm going to be explaining a few things. If you're not into that, then probably go and watch another video. But if you're into your cooking and you want to know why it is we're doing different things, let me know. The other elephant in the room is I've got one of my colourful chef jackets on, which apparently hurts people's eyes. And I've had all sorts of weird comments about that. Again, if you don't like a bit of colour in the kitchen, move along, do something else, because people that have been with me a long time know that we love some colour in the kitchen. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get on and make these hot cross buns. Now, I'm going to add all my ingredients into a bowl, and I'll just list somehow the ingredients rather than saying how much of everything, and I'll put them in imperial and metric. We've got bread flour, that's strong bread flour, and that's about 330 grams or so. I'm doing it, I'm already telling you the measurements, and I don't want to. So the bread flour has to be strong flour, not plain flour. We want that extra gluten, particularly because we're only going to be proofing this bread once. And that's a little unusual for hot cross buns, but it makes it simpler, and I think most of you will enjoy it more. It may end up with a slightly closer crumb. Anyway, we'll see. The other thing we're going to want is some sweetness, so I've got some soft brown sugar. Pop that in on top of the flour. We also need a little bit of salt. Yeast. Now I'm using instant dried yeast, and it's a good habit to get used to putting your yeast away from your salt. It doesn't really matter so much with instant dried yeast, but it's a habit that you should get into. So that's, no, it's not all the dried ingredients. We've got to put some spice. So I've got mixed spice here. This is your cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, all those lovely sweet spices. In Australia, we call that mixed spice. Pop that on top of the sugar. And rather than sieve it, you can actually take a whisk, and then what we can do is just go through this, and it'll lighten the flour and also mix all the ingredients thoroughly in with there, so we get a nice even sort of flavouring and texture. Our wet ingredients are just milk and melted butter. This milk is a little bit cool, it's just come out of the fridge, and the butter is also a little bit firm, so I'm going to actually pop the butter in with the milk. So by putting the butter in with the milk, and we pop that in the microwave for about 30 seconds just to warm it through, it will actually warm up the milk and melt the butter at the same time, which is perfect. While that's warming through, I'm really interested to see, and I think any of you who've got an air fryer, one that can actually go down to really low temperatures as the Instant Vortex Plus does, if this could be used as a bread proofer, it really is a very useful tool to have in the kitchen. The only thing with air fryers is they're moving air over the dough all the time, which isn't ideal, so we're going to have to think of ways of getting around that. So there, now the milk is, it's not hot, it's just a little warm, and the butter has melted on top. We can now pop that in with our flour. Now I always see bakers getting their hands in there and getting this big shaggy mitt, which I find absolute madness. Why would you do that? It takes ages to get that off your hands. It's so difficult to clean. Just get yourself a little dough hook or a fork in this instance, and just start to draw the flour through the moisture. And what this will do, it'll keep your hands a little bit easier, keep the kitchen tidier. It takes a few seconds, just a few seconds, to draw most of that moisture into the dough, and then we're just going to pull that off the fork. And now I can do this without getting a big shaggy mitt. Now with the fats in here, we've got a fairly enriched dough, so you'll know if you do a lot of baking that enriched doughs take a lot more rising. So that can be a bit problematic with what we're going to do with a single rise, but you know, we're experimenting today. You're going to find out with me if this works. I'm pretty sure that I've got my recipe worked out. Okay, once that started to bind together, sorry, I'm banging the counter, we're just going to get that dough out. And we're finished with the bowl now. You can pop that aside. Pop your dough onto the counter. It's a little bit sticky. You can either use a machine and dough hook, but I love mixing dough, so I'm going to go with a 10-minute knead. And what we're going to do is just stretch the dough out. It'll be a little bit textured like that, and what we're just going to do is push and stretch until we get, firstly, the gluten developed in the dough, and secondly, a lovely smooth texture. We're not going to put our fruit in yet because it will actually inhibit the gluten strands from developing. You can see actually as you knead the dough, you get a nice smooth elastic texture to it. It's still breaking a little bit, and if you find that your dough is a little bit too dry, you might have to adjust the amount of milk you put in it by a small amount. Anyway, carry on, we've got another 5 minutes to go. So you can see we're getting a beautiful elasticity on the dough now. And at this point, I want to add my fruit in. Now, if you do decide to do a second proof, if you want to leave this, let it proof and then knock it down again, you can put the fruit in on the second mix. So I'm just stretching this out a little bit, make a little bowl out of there. I've got raisins. I really like to put some mixed peel in there, but I hadn't got any mixed peel with me today, so I'm just going with raisins, but you can use currants, you can use cranberries, any dried fruits you like. Tell me what you like in your hot cross buns. So we've got the pocket. These things are going to continually want to sort of escape and explode from inside. So I'll try and do it with my right hand so you can see. But I could move the camera, but I just can't be bothered. Just keep pulling them back in, sort of teasing them back into the center. And after maybe a minute or two, only the odd little rogue one will try to escape. That's one thing with hot cross buns, is there's often a little bit of fruit that sticks on the outside of a fruit bun, and it'll scorch. I love those. Okay, I think that's enough. We've got the fruit fairly evenly distributed throughout the dough. What I want to do is divide this up into 8. See what weight we've got here in total. 692, so about 700 grams, so about 24 ounces. 24 divides up nicely between 8, doesn't it? Yeah, that'll give us 3-ounce buns, so maybe I should do it in ounces. Cut them on a board rather than cut the countertop. So we want 8. Approximately, we can cut this into half, half, and half again. So that's about an 82 gram, and if I change that over to ounces, yes, it's very close to about 3 ounces. So I'll stick with my grams. We go about sort of 85, I think. Which camera? Why am I looking at that camera? It can't see me. We go about 85. So let's weigh these out. That'll do me. We've got 8 individual pieces of dough. I'll just put my scales out of the way. Then we want to take these little balls of dough and just round them. So just push them firmly down onto the counter and roll them round. And you might find the odd bit of fruit trying to escape, but when you finish, you'll have these lovely little formed buns with a lovely tight elastic top on them, which is absolutely perfect for what we're looking for. I'm actually going to push them down just a little bit because they're going to proof in our air fryer. So let's get another 2. This is a little firm. The hydration is quite low. I'm trying to not avoid doing those, so I'm not moving them properly. So this is a little firm. It's a fairly dense dough, so I think possibly I could have made this dough a little wetter, so you can experiment with that yourself. A little dry. I think I might increase, if I did this again, increase the moisture content maybe by about 5%. I mean, they're probably going to be just perfect and delicious, but let's just push those down. Let's move a few little bits out the way, quick tidy up. I've got inside the air fryer one of these cool little air fryer liners, but it's just basically a piece of baking parchment that's pre-cut. I should have boiled the kettle before, but while it's boiling, I've got this little water spray, and I'm going to use that to sort of put a little mist over the top of the buns once they're in the proofer. Now I had this idea to put some hot water in the ramekin, so pop the paper in, put the hot water in the center and put the buns around. But what I think I might do is just add, because this thing's effectively got a tray in the bottom, I'm going to put a little hot water, not much, just a splash, because we want as much steam in there as possible, because remember, with the air fryer, there's a lot of air movement, so it's going to instinctively want to dry out the buns. In the center, I'm going to pop a lot of popping. I get into trouble for popping as well. You wouldn't believe what I get into trouble with on YouTube. Don't say this, don't say that. And I'm going to just over half fill that also with some steaming hot water. We're then going to take each of our little hot cross buns and place them in around, and don't worry if they're touching. I quite like them to touch because I like my hot cross bun to sort of tear apart. And I'm just going to spray, because already my dough is getting a little bit dry, I'm going to spray the top of each of the buns with a little water. You see some steam just rising off of there? And that's absolutely perfect. So we're going to pop that in now. And we're going to use the dehydration method. I'm going for about 38 degrees Celsius. You can actually change the temperature, so you can go up to, the other way, up to 40, but I think about 38, because there's a heating element in there and it ticks on and ticks off to get the temperature. So sometimes it has a little spike in temperature and a little drop. So I want it to be around about 40 degrees Celsius. And we're going to pop it in there for 1 hour. So we can now start that. What I am going to do is every sort of 20 minutes or so, I'm just going to pull the tray out. I'll show you. I'm just going to pull the tray out, and I'm going to add a little spray, a little mist over the top of the buns, just in case they're drying out. If you've got a proper proofer at home, there's no air movement in there, so the bread doesn't tend to dry out. So that's why I'm doing that. Let's see if these, at least I would hope, are going to double in size. I'll interrupt this quickly just to say I've been taking it out every 20 minutes and misting it over, but I'm really pleased. They're plumping up beautifully. That's got 10 minutes to go. We've got to mix up a little flour and water. Don't add sugar into it. A lot of people add sugar, but that just makes it go brown. You won't have the nice sort of white or lighter cross. I've got one of these little piping, what do you call these, Michelle? What's this? A little piping bottle. Let's call it a piping bottle. And this will be perfect for just putting the crosses on, but of course you can use a piping bag or a Ziploc bag and just cut the corner off. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And you'll see what you end up with is what looks a little bit like a mayonnaise, a sort of texture of mayonnaise. So it has to be able to run, but also not so watery that it just runs straight off of the hot cross buns. Now, Michelle says I've probably not made enough. I think we've got absolutely plenty, and I don't want to waste flour with all the shortages going on in the world at the moment. Now look at those, they look great. You'll see them on this camera here. They've puffed up to probably double the size. I'm going to go with the all-round design. So because our buns are actually joining anyway, we're doing a white, it's almost like icing. Okay, so now what we'll do is just put our crosses over one. See, they've swollen up. There's so much, there's barely any room to get in there to mark my crosses. Now, I could take the ramekin out, but I'm probably overthinking it. I think I'll leave it in there to get the steam. Would you like to apologise? We've got lots and lots of batter. I could do another 20 crosses with this. I've saved the flour. I'm saving the world one hot cross bun at a time. So what we're going to do is put it in there. This is the first time I've done this, so you're learning with me. As soon as the drawer engages, the interface comes on. We're going to go with bake. 200 degrees, 15 minutes is already there. I'm going to do the full 15 minutes. But I'm going to check them because it's a pretty hot oven. So it's going to preheat. I think it actually says there, yes, preheating. And then it'll beep, and then we're supposed to put the hot cross buns in. But because we can't really take them out of the air fryer, I've got to leave them in there. You really want that sort of heat to make the buns rise that little bit extra with the sort of the sudden injection of heat. The yeast will get excited and they'll puff up. We haven't got that opportunity. What we have got is we've got an air fryer which heats up really quickly. So this will get up to 200 degrees within sort of like maybe 1 or 2 minutes, which is perfect. If you were doing an oven, it can take 5–10 minutes to get up to temperature. So I think we'll get away with it. Wish me luck. So there I've made I've used brown sugar, a little bit of that soft brown sugar, and I've made a simple syrup. Equal water to sugar, heat it in the microwave. I've got a pastry brush here, and we're just going to use that to coat over the hot cross buns. I'm talking too much, Michelle. I'm too excited. It's smelling good already. Okay, it's ended. It's all done. Look at that. They look absolutely gorgeous. So I've got to get that little ramekin of water out, because I've basically got a halo of hot cross buns. Let's just tear one of them open. Wow, that looks good. That looks good. Now, the bottoms seem cooked. We want these now to cool just for maybe 5 minutes max, and then I want to put a little sugary coating over the top. Look at that. So there's the sugar solution. It's almost like putting a little gloss coating. I can't resist one, Michelle. I know they're way too hot, but come and just take a look at that. And ordinarily, if you cut open a hot bun, it's going to compact the crumb inside. Look at that. Oh yeah. That's really delicious. I can't wait. I don't want the buns to completely cool down, because I want the butter to be sort of melting on the buns. And you can see this one here has got one of those little burnt raisins on that I absolutely love. So that's the one I'm going for. And just like when I was a kid, I'm just going to take that little burnt currant off of there. Oh God, it's almost stuck on with the syrup. Oh, that's so good. This feels light and airy. It's very sticky, but look, the crumb is quite tight. So I'm going to take a little bit, probably a little bit too much there, a little bit of salted butter. Now I love hot cross buns the day after, when I can just toast them in the toaster oven. There it is. They smell so good, and I'm so hungry. That is perfect. So I'm going to call it here. You can absolutely make hot cross buns in an air fryer, at least in this particular air fryer you can, and they're delicious. So if your Easter's coming up, if you want to give this a try. Now, some thoughts about today's process, because this is the first time we've tried this, is what I might do is I might leave the ramekin out so that I can actually lay the hot cross buns in a sort of square formation, and maybe go, 3 by 3, so maybe make 9 hot cross buns, and then, or you could even just do 6 like they have in the shops quite often. And that way I just have them on the board, so they're just touching each other, so they're not right up against each other, just kissing the edge of the next bun as it rises. And that way I think we'll have a more uniform shape, because these, Michelle's little Easter flowers, these ones, while they actually look beautiful, they're a little wedge shaped, but that's perfectly fine. The other thing I might do is just lay them onto a plain parchment rather than use that liner that I had, so it's not coming up the side of the buns. But apart from that, 10 out of 10. This is absolutely delicious. You've got to try it. We're going to have some fun with a little bit later today. I'm going to be trying frozen French fries to homemade French fries. So that's a video that's coming up very shortly. And we got loads more to do. We got to really test the bejeez out of this air fryer. So stay tuned. Love to you all. Michelle and I are going to sit here and have a lovely cup of coffee and have maybe a couple of hot cross buns. Take care.